There is a hidden land within the human soul where few dare to enter. In that place, darkness is not the enemy, but the mirror that reflects our deepest nature. For generations, we have been taught to flee from fear, to conceal our vulnerability, to remain strong and radiant under the gaze of the world. Yet in this endless flight, we lose our way home, because the path back to ourselves does not lie in the bright glare of perfection, but in the soft shadow of what has yet to be seen. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the unseen side of the soul, containing everything we reject, yet holding the key to our wholeness. As the Buddha once said, "There is no light greater than the wisdom born from darkness." Only when we sit with our fears, with the memories we have long denied, can we hear the true voice of the heart. The shadow is not to be destroyed, but to be understood, embraced, and integrated into the light. Within each of us lives a part that longs to shine and a part that longs to be seen. When these two meet, the soul becomes whole. This is not a journey of intellect, but of courage. The courage to look into oneself without judgment, without escape. For true freedom is not found in escaping darkness, but in realizing that darkness also belongs to the light. We have always believed there is an I that truly exists, a fixed center standing behind every thought, emotion, and action. But if we pause long enough to look deeply within, we realize that I is not a solid entity, but a flowing movement of countless events arising and fading away. This body, this emotion, this thought, all are in constant change. What we call self is merely the temporary harmony of 5 processes the Buddha called the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. They are like 5 instruments playing together in a symphony called a person, yet none of them is the music itself. When the sound ceases, the symphony vanishes, and we cannot point to where it has gone. Carl Jung, from a Western view, said something similar. The ego is only a small light on the vast sea of consciousness. Beneath awareness lies the boundless depth of the personal and collective unconscious, where memories, instincts, symbols, and shadows merge in silence. When we cling to the ego, we become prisoners of the image we built. We live to defend that identity. I am good. I am successful. I am a failure. I am a victim. But all these labels are placed upon a river that never stops flowing. We call the current moment me, yet it has already changed before we can grasp it. Suffering begins when we try to freeze the flow of life. We want the body not to age, love not to fade, the mind to stay happy. Yet everything moves by its own law. Fighting that law brings fear and tension. The Buddha taught that if form were self, we could command it, be young, be beautiful, but we cannot, because the body is not ours. The same is true for feelings, thoughts, and consciousness. They arise with conditions and vanish when conditions end. Seeing this clearly brings deep peace. There is nothing left to protect because there is no one to protect. Nothing to prove because there is no one comparing. The ego, built on opposites, good and bad, gain and loss, dissolves like mist. We still live, breathe, and love, but everything becomes lighter, more natural. Love without ego flows like a clear stream. Sorrow without ownership becomes rain nourishing the soil of the heart. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The self we think exists is only the meeting point of light and shadow, of consciousness and the unknown. When we stop fixing ourselves into one role, life becomes like a vast mirror, reflecting all things, yet clinging to none. In Buddhism, non-self does not mean loss of identity. It means realizing we were never separate from the living whole. When the I dissolves, only pure presence remains, nameless, limitless, without boundary between inner and outer. In that silence, compassion arises naturally, for when there is no self, there are no others. We see ourselves in every being, in the laughter of a child, the tears of the suffering, the breath of the dying. Living from that space, the world becomes whole. There is no more struggle for recognition, no chasing of self-image. We live simply, like wind, like water, like the heartbeat of the universe. Each moment is a death and a birth, no one lost, no one born, only life expressing itself in endless forms. In this acceptance, fear vanishes. Death is no longer an enemy, but a doorway. Loss is no longer an end, but transformation. Everything we once clung to, name, body, emotion, memory, flows away like leaves on a river, and we realize the river itself is the truth, not the leaves. There is no fixed I, yet there is life continuously unfolding through the form we call me. Seeing this, the mind opens wide, unbound by self-concept. True freedom begins, not the freedom of control, but of release, of unity, of living without fear of loss. For when there is no one left to hold, there is nothing left to lose. When there is no one left to become, we have finally returned to life itself, life that never once left us. The five aggregates are the five streams that compose what we call a person, yet none of them is truly I. The Buddha likened them to 5 bundles of firewood forming a single blaze, burning for a while before turning into ash. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, these 5 are in constant motion, interacting, arising, and passing away moment by moment. Seeing this changes everything. Form is the body, matter, the shape we can touch. It seems solid and personal, but under close observation, every cell is changing, every breath entering and leaving. The body we call mine is a temporary borrowing from earth, water, fire, and air. When these elements disperse, the body returns to its source. No self remains to claim it. Feeling is the raw taste of life, sweet, bitter, or neutral. It arises as the senses contact the world, then fades like a bubble on water. We are ruled by feelings, clinging to pleasure, rejecting pain. Yet none of them lasts long enough to be a self. When we see this clearly, we begin to live lightly, watching joy and sorrow arise and pass without being carried away. Perception is labeling, the mind naming the world. This is beautiful, that is ugly, this person kind, that person cruel. But these labels are not reality. They are mirrors of past experience. What we call the world is our interpretation of it. Like one looking through tinted glass, everything takes on the color of memory and belief. When we understand perception as interpretation, certainty softens and openness begins. Mental formations are habits, intentions, impulses, the inner engine that moves us to act, to love, to fear, to repeat. Every behavior, thought, and reflex arises from conditions, education, memory, trauma, inheritance. There is no doer, only the unfolding of karma. Yet here lies freedom. When we see a reaction before it takes hold, we may choose not to follow. In that instant, the old pattern cracks, and a new space for awareness appears. Consciousness is knowing, the simple recognition that something is. It makes us believe there must be a knower, an observer behind the knowing. But look closer. Consciousness, too, arises and ceases like breath. The awareness of a moment ago is not the same as the awareness now. It flickers, dependent on body, feeling, and environment. When the body tires, awareness dims. When the body sleeps, awareness stops. So, is consciousness truly me? All five, form, feeling, perception, formations, consciousness, are like threads weaving the cloth of life. Pull each one apart and the cloth disappears. I is merely a name for their temporary union. They are impermanent, selfless, like clouds in the sky, like waves upon the sea. When we no longer identify with them, fear fades. The body may hurt, yet the heart remains calm. Emotions may shift, yet a deep stillness underneath never wavers. The enlightened one is not free from the aggregates, but free within them, seeing them as processes, not possessions. When the five aggregates are seen as they truly are, impermanent, empty of self, the wall between me and the world dissolves. Only life remains, expressing itself in countless forms. And when we know there is no I to lose, no I to attain, we move as freely as wind and water, as effortlessly as sunlight gliding across the lake, leaving nothing behind to cling to. Form, the body, seems the most real and intimate thing we possess, yet it is the most fragile illusion of all. When we look in the mirror and see a face, we believe that face is me, but every cell within it is dying and being replaced. Every breath in and out is changing it. The body never stands still, not for a single moment. In each second, millions of cells are born and vanish like tiny waves in the ocean. If the body were truly me, we could command it. Do not age, do not fall ill, stay beautiful. But we cannot. We are only witnesses to this ceaseless transformation, helpless before the law of nature. The body is formed from earth, water, fire, and air, and to them it will return. It is like a river flowing through our lives. We can bathe in it, feel its coolness, but we cannot hold a single drop. The body is borrowed, a vessel that carries us across the human journey, not who we are. The Buddha said that if form were self, we could make it free from pain, aging, and death. Yet the body grows weary, suffers, and slowly dissolves with time. Still, we spend much of our lives worshiping this illusion, painting it, decorating it, fearing every wrinkle and gray hair. We cling to a form that is already fading without knowing it. The modern world intensifies this attachment. Social media, beauty ideals, and the cult of youth all fan the fire of ego and the fear of decay. But which body is truly me? The child's body is gone. The body of youth has vanished. And even the body of this very moment is already changing. If we gather them all, none could be called real. Like a lamp burning through the night, its flame appears constant, yet each second it is a new flame. So too with the body, arising and passing continuously. Only the illusion of continuity makes us think a single person exists. When we see this truth, the body ceases to be a prison of identity and becomes a teacher of impermanence. We begin to love it, not to possess it, but to honor its fragility. We care for it not to defy time, but to thank life for using it as a vessel. Every wrinkle, every scar becomes a signature of living, a testimony that we have felt, loved, and endured. When the body aches, we know it is only a signal. When it ages, we recognize the law. When it dies, we see nothing truly ends. Only the elements return home. Seeing form as impermanent, we no longer fear death, for death is simply part of movement. We no longer fear loss, for nothing was ever truly ours. Looking deeply into the body, we realize it is just a reflection in the mirror of the universe, and when the mirror fades, the light remains. One who understands the impermanence of form neither despises nor worships the body, but lives within it as within the wind, grateful for each breath, each heartbeat, knowing all things are passing. And in that passing, we touch the undying, life itself, boundless and luminous, still breathing through every form, even as this body disappears.
Feeling, Vedana, is one of the subtlest movements of the mind, and also the root of suffering when its nature is not understood. Every moment of life carries a feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. When the eyes see a form, the ears hear a sound, the body touches, or the mind thinks, feeling arises automatically, as natural as breathing. The Buddha taught that feeling itself is not the problem. Suffering begins with our reaction to it. When pleasure appears, we cling, wanting to keep it. to own it. When pain arises, we resist, trying to escape or destroy it. When neutrality comes, we ignore it, sinking into indifference. These three reactions, grasping, aversion, and ignorance, bind us to the wheel of becoming. The Buddha called this the lesson of the two arrows. The first arrow is the inevitable feeling, pleasant or painful, arising by contact. The second arrow is the mental reaction, resentment, craving, fear, that we shoot into our own heart. And it is that second arrow that deepens the wound. If we can pause and simply notice, this is tightness, heat, ache, pressure, without adding story or identity, the feeling loses its poison. It rises and falls like a wave that leaves the ocean unchanged. This is the essence of mindfulness, to register feeling without labeling, without chasing, without rejecting. A pleasant feeling is just a feeling. We can enjoy it without clinging. An unpleasant feeling is just a feeling. We can accept it without despair. Practiced long enough, we see that every feeling is impermanent, not worth fear or possession. They are rain passing through the sky of awareness, and we remain untouched because we are not the rain. Modern life makes us forget this art. We chase comfort through food, screens, shopping, and drown discomfort in endless activity. Yet behind that search lies fear, the fear of sitting still with ourselves. Mindfulness brings us home. When we can sit with a painful feeling without needing it to change, we begin to taste freedom. Freedom is not the absence of suffering, but the absence of slavery to suffering. Each time a feeling arises, we can gently remind ourselves, this is the first arrow. I will not shoot the second. Such a small reminder holds immense power. In that moment, the cycle of reaction breaks, and we glimpse the space between feeling and response, where the mind is free. Living in that awareness, feeling becomes a teacher rather than an enemy. It teaches impermanence, causation, and release. Every sensation, sweet or bitter, can be a doorway to awakening if we cease to fear it. In this understanding, we stop running from pain and stop chasing pleasure. We simply dwell, whole, still, serene, amid waves of feeling rising and falling, while the heart remains vast and calm like the ocean itself.
Perception, sanya, is the faculty that allows us to recognize the world, yet it is also the veil that keeps us from seeing reality as it truly is. Every time we see, hear, or touch something, the brain immediately labels it pleasant or unpleasant, beautiful or ugly, safe or dangerous. It happens so quickly that we believe we are perceiving truth, but in fact, we are only perceiving our interpretation of it. Everything passes through the lens of memory, belief, fear, and past experience. No one truly sees the world as it is. Each of us sees the world as we are. One who has been betrayed will see suspicion in another's eyes. One who has been loved will see trust in the same gaze. The scene does not change, but the mind does, and thus the world does. Perception is like a mirror that no longer shines clearly, its surface covered by the dust of the past. The more dust there is, the more distorted the reflection becomes, and we mistake our projections for reality. The Buddha taught that because we do not see perception as perception, conflict and suffering arise. We insist that we are right, that others are wrong, not knowing we are defending our own imagination. Humanity lives in a mosaic of private realities, each painted with the colors of experience. When we realize that what we see is not absolute truth, humility is born. We understand that no one is entirely right, no perspective complete, only fragments of a vast shared picture. From humility grows wisdom, for it opens us to listen, to observe, and to learn without judgment. Compassion too blossoms from this seeing. When we recognize that everyone is reacting to the images within their own minds, we stop condemning. The angry person is blinded by old pain. The cruel one acts from hidden fear. Seeing this, we no longer wish to punish. We wish to help them see. As Carl Jung said, we do not see things as they are. We see them as we are. Modern science echoes this truth. The brain does not merely receive data, it predicts, filling in the gaps with memory and belief. What we call seeing is the mind's best reconstruction of the world. Reality, then, is a tapestry woven from countless overlapping illusions. But knowing this does not make life meaningless, it makes it sacred. For every moment we truly see someone without a label, without the weight of the past, is a miracle. When we look at loved ones as if for the first time, or at ourselves without the label, "This is who I am," perception becomes a doorway to freedom. We realize perception is the glass, not the sky. When the dust is wiped away, the light of reality shines through, pure, undistorted, alive. And then life itself becomes luminous, ever new, as we no longer live inside our story, but in the radiant truth of this moment, where every being is a mirror reflecting the mind itself. Mental formations, sankhara, are the silent currents beneath the mind, where habits, intentions, and reactions are born. They are the invisible engines that drive our actions, speech, and thoughts, our love, our fear, our anger. Each time an emotion arises, sankhara moves like an undercurrent, pushing us to act, to escape discomfort, or to chase pleasure. When we are sad, we reach for the phone. When lonely, we seek someone's voice. When afraid, we defend ourselves. We call it choice, but most of the time, the choice is already made. These are sankhara, patterns conditioned by memory, culture, and countless past experiences. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Sankhara is that unconscious mechanism at work. Every repeated reaction deepens its pathway in the mind, like water carving grooves into stone. A single burst of anger, when indulged, becomes habit. Fear, when avoided, becomes instinct. We carry these habits as invisible burdens, mistaking them for identity. I am short-tempered, I am weak, but they are only formations that have learned to run by themselves. The miracle is that they can be undone. When we notice an impulse, reaching for the phone, preparing to argue, tightening the chest, and simply pause without following, the habit weakens. Each moment of non-reaction is light shining on the unconscious. There is no need to fight. Seeing is transformation. Awareness itself dissolves the energy of repetition. The Buddha taught that liberation does not come by destroying the formations, but by understanding them. When we see anger without becoming anger, we are free. When we feel fear without obeying it, we step out of karma's circle. In the stillness of mindfulness, formations become transparent. An intention appears and fades. An emotion rises and passes. There is no I acting, only the process unfolding. Within that process lies a small yet precious space, the gap between impulse and action. In that gap lives freedom. The practitioner does not wait to be free of habits. They live within that space where conscious choice is born. Like a musician pausing before the next note, we stop, breathe, and allow the next act to arise from clarity, not reflex. Each time we do, we are no longer ruled by the past. The mind becomes fluid, like water, soft yet powerful. Even wholesome intentions, to help, to succeed, to know, are still formations, if not guided by awareness. They are not wrong, but they belong to the conditioned realm. Only when action springs from stillness, not from need or fear, is there true freedom. This is the non-formation the Buddha spoke of, not doing nothing, but acting without bondage. When the mind is no longer driven by old momentum, everything becomes effortless. The world still moves, we still work, speak, and love, but all is light without the shadow of I must. Old habits melt like ice in sunlight, and we realize there was never truly a doer, only life itself moving through endless processes. Seeing this, every action becomes clear and peaceful, untouched by suffering. Consciousness, vijnana, is the process of knowing, the light that gives us the sense of I see, I hear, I am aware. Because it feels so intimate, we mistake it for an eternal observer, a soul standing outside experience, watching it unfold. Yet what we call awareness is as impermanent as clouds drifting across the sky. Consciousness arises and ceases moment by moment, dependent on conditions of body and world. When the eye meets a form, visual consciousness arises. When the ear meets sound, auditory consciousness appears. With smell, taste, touch, and thought, 6 forms of consciousness flicker in succession, each a flash of knowing, born and gone. Like frames of a film projected rapidly, they create the illusion of continuous awareness. But in truth, no single frame lasts. When we fall into deep sleep, faint, or lose focus, the observer vanishes. If there were an eternal soul, how could it disappear so easily? The Buddha said, if consciousness were self, it would not lead to affliction, and one could say, let my consciousness be thus. But because it is not self, it changes and brings suffering. Consciousness, then, is not a soul, but a dependent process.
When conditions arise, it appears. When conditions end, it ceases. Close the eyes and visual awareness vanishes. Silence the sound and auditory awareness is gone. Still the mind and mental consciousness fades. The I who knows is nothing more than the meeting of sense base, object, and consciousness, a momentary coordination giving rise to experience. No one stands outside it. Jung once wrote, "What we call consciousness is but a small part of the infinite life that moves through us." Awareness is not the owner of experience, it is experience. It is not the hand that holds the light, but the light itself. Seeing this, we release the idea of a central observer. There is no me apart from what is known, no witness controlling or possessing life. Everything exists through interdependence. Hearing implies sound, seeing implies form, thinking implies thought. Nothing exists apart from relationship. When the body dies, the senses dissolve, and consciousness dissolves too. No soul departs. Only causes and conditions give rise to new experience, like one candle lighting another, neither the same nor entirely different. Understanding this, we stop clinging even to awareness as the final refuge of self. The observer too is impermanent, flickering in and out of existence. Looking deeply, we find no one who sees, only seeing. No one who hears, only hearing. No one who thinks, only thought arising and passing. In that moment, observer and observed merge, and the wall between them falls away. What remains is pure awareness, nameless, ownerless, selfless. Living from that seeing, experience becomes transparent. The world is no longer divided into me and everything else, but is life itself knowing itself. And in that ownerless knowing, suffering ends. For there is no one left to suffer, no one left to hold or to lose. The illusion of self arises from the simultaneous interplay of the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, like an orchestra without a conductor. When these elements operate together, they create such a seamless experience that we believe there must be someone living, feeling, and thinking. But if we pause and listen closely, there is no musician behind the sound, only individual notes resonating and fading. What we call I is merely the echo of that harmony, without a true essence or fixed center. It is like a cart. If you remove the wheels, frame, and axle, you will not find a cart anywhere. Cart is only a convenient name for a temporary arrangement of parts. In the same way, person is a name for the coordination of ever-changing physical and mental processes. There is no entity in the middle commanding or possessing these aggregates, only conditions expressing themselves in countless forms. When the body meets an object, sensation arises. Sensation leads to perception. Perception triggers reaction. Reaction gives rise to consciousness, and the chain continues, like electricity passing through bulbs to create light. But that light has no one who lights it. It is simply the product of interdependent causes. We mistake continuity for identity, believing there must be an experiencer, yet there is only experience unfolding. Looking deeply, I think, I feel, I see are linguistic shortcuts, a convenient summary of multiple processes happening at once. The body senses, the mind reacts, awareness knows, and memory strings them together into a person. But when thought stops, only pure awareness remains, no one behind it. The Buddha said, "Just as fire cannot exist without fuel, the self cannot exist apart from the aggregates. Without form, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness, there is no self to be found. When the aggregates dissolve, the illusion of self vanishes, like a bell's tone fading when the wind dies." In modern life, this illusion grows stronger. We are told to define ourselves, to protect the ego, to find a better version of me. Yet this me is only a collage of memories and stories stitched together by language. When that thread breaks, the story ends, and only life remains, breathing on its own. Seeing this, we no longer fear losing ourselves, for there was never anyone to lose. Like a dreamer who wakes and realizes the character in the dream was never real, awakening does not destroy life, it reveals it. Life continues, fresh and unbound. To live without the cage of I is the deepest freedom, not emptiness, but vastness, the river flowing into the sea. From this understanding, compassion blooms, for without I, there is no other. Every being is a note in the same boundless symphony. When we see this, all boundaries dissolve, and only the song of existence remains. No singer, no listener, only the eternal music of being itself. The three marks of existence, impermanence, suffering, and non-self, are the keys that unlock the entire teaching of the Buddha, and they imprint themselves on every one of the five aggregates, like three lines etched into the body of life that no one can erase. When we understand these marks, we see the world differently, not as fixed things, but as an endless flow of conditioned processes. Each aggregate, form, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness, bears these three signs. Form, the body and matter, is always changing, always dissolving. Born of earth, water, fire, and air, it returns to them again. There is no moment when the body stands still, no matter how we try to preserve it with cosmetics, medicine, or prayer. Change is not a flaw, it is the law. When we cling to form, wanting it to stay young or strong, we suffer. Feeling is impermanent too. Pleasure fades, pain passes, neutrality shifts. Believing happiness will last brings disappointment. Fearing pain will stay brings despair. Only by seeing feeling as transient as breath can we smile through joy and sorrow alike. Perception is impermanent too, for the mind constantly relabels reality. What we found beautiful yesterday may seem dull today. The person we once loved may now feel distant. When we cling to perception, we fall into conflict, forgetting that every view is a construction, not an absolute truth. Formations, our habits, drives, and intentions also change. A short temper can soften. Fear can turn to courage. Nothing in us is fixed. But when we identify with a personality, I'm just this kind of person, we build a prison for ourselves. Finally, consciousness is impermanent too. arising and ceasing moment by moment with the senses. When sight appears, visual consciousness arises. When sound stops, auditory consciousness fades. Awareness flickers like a flame before the wind. Yet we imagine an eternal observer behind it, a soul standing apart. That illusion keeps us bound. Impermanence gives rise to suffering, not because things change, but because we want them not to. Every sorrow, loss, fear, regret, jealousy, is the friction between life's flow and our desire for stillness. But impermanence is not an enemy, it is a teacher, reminding us that all can change, that no pain lasts forever, and that nothing we cling to can truly be lost. When we see this, we let go, and in letting go, suffering eases, for there is no one longer to hold on. This is the third mark, non-self. Non-self does not mean nothing exists. It means nothing exists independently. There is no I apart from the processes, just as there is no river apart from the flowing water. When we look for I within the aggregates, we find only movement, no owner. What we call self is a convenient label, as cloud is a word for vapor gathering and dissolving. Clinging to any aggregate, body, feeling, perception, habit, or consciousness brings suffering, for we are trying to hold a cloud. Only when we release it do we see the sky that was never lost. The three marks are not merely doctrine, but a way of seeing. Seeing impermanence, we learn gratitude. Seeing suffering, we learn compassion. Seeing non-self, we learn freedom. And in that seeing, the aggregates still move. The body breathes, the mind thinks, emotions rise and fall, but no one is caught in them. There is only vast, luminous life flowing through all things, where suffering turns into understanding and impermanence becomes the song of freedom.
Understanding the five aggregates is not for philosophy, but for practice. For the goal of the Buddha's teaching is not to know more, but to end suffering at its root. When we see that the aggregates are merely impermanent processes, we stop identifying with them, and that is the beginning of freedom. The Buddha taught that rebirth is not the movement of a soul from one body to another, but the continuity of causes and conditions, like one flame lighting another, neither the same nor different. Mental formations create karma, and karma continues as energy within the chain of causes, without any one to carry it. When the body dissolves, these aggregates end, but the momentum of intention and habit conditions the arising of new aggregates. No person passes from life to life. There is only the ongoing flow of cause and effect, like a river winding through many bends, each stretch of water new. Seeing this, we no longer fear death, for no one truly dies, only conditions change. As rain becomes river, river becomes cloud, and cloud returns as rain. Life does not end, it transforms. But the essential question is not where we will be reborn, but how we are living now. Every moment we act, speak, or think with wholesome or unwholesome intention, we are already reborn in the stream of karma. Each time we drop an old reaction, a new life begins, here, now. This is awakening within the present moment.
a rebirth without death. The Buddha's method for this is simple yet profound: to contemplate each aggregate directly. Observe the body, its sensations, movements, breath, and ask, is this me? Is this mine? Is this myself? As the mind quiets, we see the body as a process, not a person. Then turn to feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, and ask again. Seeing their arising and passing, we know they cannot be me, for what is truly me must endure. Then perception, labels, judgments, memories. Ask again, and seeing their change, we stop defending opinions as life itself. Next, mental formations, impulses, habits, intentions. See them arise automatically, without command. Finally, consciousness itself, the sense of knowing. Look directly at the feeling, I am aware, and ask, who is aware? No one is found. Only awareness itself, luminous and ownerless. This inquiry is not for intellect, but for liberation. It opens a space where identification loosens and suffering loses its foundation. Each time we see, this is not me, another knot unties, and freedom grows in the silent gap. This is the contemplation of non-self, not belief, but direct seeing. We need not imagine or reason, only observe the unfolding of reality in body and mind. When form is seen as just matter, emotion as just feeling, thought as just perception, impulse as just formation, and awareness as just knowing, we realize that the self was never a solid entity. Everything continues to move, yet no one is bound. When there is no one who suffers, suffering ceases. When there is no one to be liberated, liberation is present. In that moment, the inner cycle of rebirth, the endless turning of clinging and pain, comes to rest. The world remains, but the seer has changed, lighter, wider, freer. There is no need to become anyone, for there is no one to become. Only life remains, still, luminous, selfless, like a flame illuminating itself without anyone holding the light.
Looking deeply into the five aggregates, we realize that what the Buddha revealed was not metaphysics, but a path home to the simple truth that there is no one to suffer, no one to be liberated, only life itself unfolding, knowing, and dissolving like waves upon the sea. Everything we once called me, body, feelings, thoughts, memories, intentions, are but passing ripples, and when we stop identifying, the vast ocean of mind reveals itself. That ocean has no name, no form, yet from it all phenomena arise. Seeing this, life is no longer a series of possessions to cling to, but a flow to observe, to understand, and to let go. There is nothing to fear, for there is no one to lose, nothing to prove, for life is already whole in this very moment. The Buddha said, "Whoever sees the aggregates sees suffering, and whoever sees suffering sees the path to its end." When we observe each aggregate arising and passing,
we begin to see this truth in every breath, in every contact. Pain comes and goes, joy comes and goes, thoughts come and go, and only the quiet awareness in between remains, belonging to no one, never lost. This is nirvana within daily life, not a distant realm, but the state of mind no longer bound by I and mine. To live in the world yet not be swept by it, to love without clinging, to feel pain without despair, that is the mark of one who sees the aggregates as they are. When we truly understand, every moment becomes meditation. Walking, we know form is moving. When emotion arises, we know feeling is here. When judgments appear, we see perception. When intention stirs, we see formation. And when knowing shines, we see consciousness. Everything becomes transparent, light as air, fresh as morning dew. When there is no one resisting the current, we become the current itself, fluid, compassionate, and free. Perhaps this is the deepest message the Buddha wished to give, that freedom is not somewhere else. It begins in how we see. When we stop seeking ourselves in what is ever changing, we have already come home.